Greetings, Ranger fans. Jake here for a deeper look at episode 15 of Power Rangers Dino Fury, Storm Surge. But first, a rapid run-through. Let's kick off the counter. It's morphin' time. So we open on Buzz Blast, where Javi's upset with Ollie for forgetting to pick up samples for his story on pickle onions. Punions. Because he was too wrapped up in picking up his new noise-canceling headphones. What? So Jay Board films a story on paint drying, and Jane switches Javi to a story on a weird storm in the center of Pine Ridge Bay. Same place the Nexus Prism was? Ollie's mom is investigating the energy surge there, so Ollie offers to tell Javi all about it in an interview for his story. 2 o'clock, promise. Ollie checks in with his mom to see the progress with her sub-drone, pointing out that she should get a faster laptop, a Slither mucus, spy from the bushes. Patience is a virtue, but sporks are not virtuous. So Ollie spots a crowd running away from the newest sporks beast, Tidemare, and morphs to fight it until the others join him and Zato activates the blazing battle armor. But water beats fire, so bye! They all check on Dr. Akana, but she's fine, so they return to Buzz Blast for the interview, but first there's a giveaway from Mr. Wiz, who promises a speedy laptop to whoever can guess how many gumballs he has. And Ollie's all in, which means he's super distracted during the interview, barely answering anything until he shouts out his guess and wins the laptop. Yay? Javi's upset, but Ollie's focused on getting the laptop to his mom, powering through the data and finding an object in the center of the storm that the sub-drone immediately nabs and starts dragging to shore. Because the laptop's been hacked! So Solon tracks a shortwave signal, and the Rangers race over to find Mucus, Tidemare, and Slither, who is secretly Mr. Wiz. What a shock. Slither and Mucus teleport away to retrieve the pod from the bay until it opens up and out comes a golden silhouette, scaring them both away as Dr. Akana watches. Meanwhile, the Rangers morph to fight Tidemare, who blocks all their attacks and ambushes them until they're suddenly saved by a brand new Gold Ranger, who fights off Tidemare and the henchmen with his Electro Battle Armor, taking down the Sporks Beast with an Electro Fury Blade Blast from his Gold Fury Blade Blaster, leading the others to demorph to thank him, but all he does is say hi to Zato and teleport away, leading Zato to grab the Sporks and do the same. Awkward. They go check on Dr. Akana, who theorizes that the morphin energy buildup from the Gold Ranger's pod triggered the storm, while Ollie apologizes to Javi for getting so wrapped up and having the latest greatest tech, and offers his headphones as a peace offering, pitching his mom as being a great interviewee for Javi's next story. But Jane is way too wrapped up in using the gumballs to stream a record-breaking, bubble-blowing contest that J-Borg totally wins. Roll credits. And that's the end of the episode. Now, let's take a deeper look. Well, we finally witnessed the debut of a character that the whole fandom has been waiting for, and is obviously the centerpiece of this episode. So let's dive right into discussing our star player, Mr. Wiz. Okay, I'm joking, but only a little bit. The introduction of the Dino Fury Gold Ranger is obviously the big reveal of the episode, but fans were truly gleeful over seeing Campbell Cooley finally showing his face for the first time as his character Slither's alter ego. Not counting his brief cameo as a paparazzo in Dino Charge's Royal Rangers. Fun fact, according to a story Cooley recently shared during Ranger Liz's final episode of the Ranger Week in Review, he almost turned down auditioning for this character because he thought it seemed too similar to the character he was already playing, before he read a little further, recognized that they were one and the same, and realized that he had to play the part. But let's get back to the subject of our new Gold Ranger, who remains unnamed for the moment, appearing quite suddenly towards the end of the episode, much like past Gold Rangers Trey, Jem, and Levi from Power Rangers Zeo, RPM, and Ninja Steel respectively. And there's definitely an overall feeling of harkening back to Gold Ranger debuts of the past, playing into the mystery of his identity and the unique powers that he brings to the table, a la Zeo, even as his eventual appearance has been long foreshadowed from the very first episode, a la Ninja Steel. However, there's not really too much else to say about him at this time. Despite the fact that the eponymous Storm Surge is tied directly to his appearance, and his debut battle provides us the cathartic climax of the episode, he feels fairly secondary to the core plot, though not in the same way that Jem and Levi were, with their first appearances functioning more like teasing cameos. That's because the bulk of this episode is most clearly focused on Ollie and his strained relationship with Javi, with the reveal of the Gold Ranger functioning more as a resolution to the underlying mystery of the storm than it actually feels like a resolution to the threat of Tidemare, since that threat, while heightened by the ability to neutralize the blazing battle armor, isn't really established as a major challenge until the moment of the big debut. To a certain extent, this does undermine the impact of that debut, as the dramatic tension of the moment isn't really derived from the mystery of the storm or the challenge of Tidemare, but more so by the question of what consequences will the Rangers be facing as a result of Ollie's irresponsible actions. Which is to say, not much, actually. Slither's plan succeeds. And Ollie's actions, while initially appearing to serve the villain's goals, ironically leads to the recovery of the pod from Pine Ridge Bay and the release of the new Ranger that ultimately resolves the threat of the Sporks Beast that Slither himself had just recruited. True, Ollie is shaken by the reveal of Slither being Mr. Wiz, leading to his later mea culpa at the end of the episode, but ontologically speaking, his actions actually did serve to help to speed along his mom's research and defeat the monster of the week. So this is a bit of an odd case of a ranger explicitly having to learn a lesson where the morality of his actions are really at odds with the consequences of those actions. Unfortunately, we have seen this kind of disconnect appear in Power Rangers before, probably most egregiously in Operation Overdrive's Lights Camera Dax. In that episode, Dax was shirking his ranger responsibilities in favor of working on a movie, and although he did come to his senses, it wasn't until the literal last second of completing the final shot of the film, completely wasting the time of everyone on set, just so that we could still get the cool ninja fight immediately preceding his change of heart, which went otherwise consequence-free, as he then succeeded in retrieving a scroll that the Rangers had lost in a previous episode. The moral of the episode feels similarly undercut here, as the consequences of Ollie's disregard for his teammates are largely washed clean by the Gold Ranger functioning as a get-out-of-jail-free card, although not entirely, as the emotional hurt that he causes Javi is still treated as something that he does need to atone for at the episode's end. That being said, it does feel like Ollie is still kind of missing the point here. He's clearly shaken by how his obsession left him open to manipulation and led him to letting down a friend, but the lesson is still centered around his focus on tech, rather than his behavior. This is Ollie's fourth focus episode, and the third time that his character development has been centered on his relationship with technology. Every time seeing him let what appears to be a strategically smart use of technology damage his relationship with his friends. But the actual offenses that he keeps committing rarely have to do with the use of the technology itself, and more so how he fails at communication and disrespects boundaries, all while finding justifications to avert accountability until things actually do blow up in his face to place his loved ones in danger. Meanwhile, his approach to technology is largely sound. The scanner drone would have been an effective way of tracking Sporix. The Hyper Arrow was effective at destroying Void Knight's disruptor, and Slither's X335 laptop ultimately did help solve the mystery of the storm. So it's not his obsession with tech that's a detriment to the team, but how he reacts when told that he's not allowed to pursue that obsession, using the strategic strength of the scanner drone to go against the wishes of his team, using the cool factor of his headphones as an excuse for not helping Javi, and using the benefits of the laptop as an excuse for tanking a live interview. Unless someone is placed in literal physical danger, he treats every offense as a simple transaction, where he can smooth things over with a quick sorry before shifting focus directly onto the coolness of whatever led him to make the offense in the first place, often accompanied by a smug smirk that really drives home how little he recognizes the hurt he's often causing. And because of that, I'm starting to wonder if Ollie is deliberately intended to have a social impairment. As someone presenting on the autism spectrum, I recognize that special interests can take a disproportionate focus that sometimes blinds you to the social cues of others, leading to the common misconception that autistic people can be lacking in empathy. We are not. It's currently impossible to tell if it's the intent of the show to present Ollie as autistic, as there's been no clear indicators outside of this trait that is clearly presented as a character flaw. But if that's what they're going for here, I wouldn't exactly call it the most positive framing for representation. Now, outside of Ollie's portrayal here, there are a lot of interesting elements incorporated into this episode, with the most obvious being the follow-up of the Nexus Prism's visit, and the big tease of the Gold Ranger's identity and how he connects to Zeta. But this is also probably some of the best integration of Buzz Blast we've had in quite some time. Unlike in some of their previous appearances, Jane and Jayborg actually connect organically to the main plot, with Javi's efforts to produce a good story being at the core of his character's arc throughout the episode. From the beginning, Jane's disappointment in Javi's initial failure to deliver drives the tension between him and Ollie. Jayborg's paint-drying segment is a humorous consequence of that failure, and Jane is then the one to introduce the storm that is central to the mystery of the episode. The attempts to cover the storm also allow for the reintroduction of Dr. Akana, despite her explicitly acting outside of her field, and provides the framing device of Javi's interview with Ollie for Slither to take advantage of with Mr. Wiz's gumball contest. Though it does remain unclear why Javi even had to rely on Ollie for samples in the first place. Seriously, dude, if your friend is running over an hour late, just go pick up the Punions for yourself. You have teleportation. This all helps to better frame Buzz Blast as a pretty weird workplace that fits as both a source of wacky antics and a way to keep the Rangers on the loop on the supernatural events happening across Pine Ridge. Jane is also an especially sympathetic character here, as she's clearly struggling to hold everything together and nabbing small victories wherever she can, making the final bubble-blowing contest actually feel like a small triumph for her, even with the bizarre use of CG bubblegum effects. Also, that Matrix-esque gumball catch from J-Borg was kinda weird. Still, this is how you can integrate your comic relief duo into your show by having them act both as plot drivers and as establishing agents of the tone of the world around them. This episode as a whole makes good use of its supporting characters, whether it's the exposition and mild moralizing of Dr. Akana, the hammy scheming glances of Mr. Wiz, or the subtle distress and shock on Zato's face when the Gold Ranger's casual greeting suddenly shifts attention over to him following the big battle. Interestingly though, the introduction for our Gold Ranger falls into a similar pattern that I noted in the introductory episode of the season, as we once again have character-driven elements occasionally undermining the impact of plot developments. And the more spectacular wow factor is often replaced by a subtler sense of intrigue that generates more interest than it does excitement. And while I will admit that this arc probably won't stretch out as long as previous introductions, I do love a good mystery. So make sure to join me next time for a deeper look at episode 16 of Power Rangers Dino Fury, Ancient History. Again. And if you would like to share this week's rapid run-through, you can find it as a standalone clip over at Morphin Legacy's YouTube channel. Please like, share, subscribe to us both, ring the bell for future notifications, and, until next time, farewell Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.